Hey, everyone, and welcome back for another deep dive with us. If you have any questions or suggestions for future deep dives, just leave them in the comments below. We love hearing from all of you. So last time we were talking about something pretty crazy, the arrest of Professor Oak and the whole gang.
Batch Serena and Clement.
Yeah, in Malaysia. And it was a real cliffhanger, Oak is facing charges for practicing medicine without a license, and the others got caught up in that protest that turned into a whole public disturbance.
Yeah, it's a complicated situation, and it's honestly gotten even more intriguing since we last talked about it.
Definitely intriguing is one word for it.
Yeah.
So today we're going to try to untangle all the international reactions to this whole thing and then dive into some surprising stuff that's happened with Team Plasma.
Yeah.
And then hopefully figure out what all of this means for the future of Pokemon research and, even activism.
Yeah, sounds good. There's a lot to cover. So let's maybe start with the fallout from Professor Oak's arrest. The IPRA, the International Pokemon Research Association, put out an official statement, and Al Jazeera English actually reported on it. They're kind of in a tough spot, They're expressing respect for Malaysian law, but also saying they're concerned about what they're calling a disproportionate response to Oak's actions.
So they're not like saying what he did was okay, but they seem to be suggesting that the punishment might be a bit too harsh for what he actually did.
Right, exactly. And they're really emphasizing that the IPRA is all about ethical research practices. They want to make it clear that they work with governments all over the world to make sure everyone is following the rules. But this case with Professor Oak seems like it's making them rethink those global standards.
Yeah, I can see why. What happens in Malaysia could end up affecting researchers everywhere. So what are we looking at legally for Professor Oak? What could actually happen to him?
Well, luckily, there was this interview with a Malaysian legal expert, Dato's Amirul Hamzah, on NBC News. He talked about what Oak could be facing, and it's not good. Fines, imprisonment, the whole shebang. But he did say there might be some things that could help Oak out.
Oh, really? Like what?
It seems like Oak's intention was just to help those injured Pokemon. There's no sign that he was trying to do anything bad or that he actually hurt any Pokemon. Those things could be really important when the judge makes their decision.
Okay, so there's a lot up in the air right now with Oak's case.
All right.
But then things took a pretty dark turn when Team Plasma got involved. That's the group that believes Pokemon should be liberated from humans, right?
Yeah, Team Plasma has a history of, causing trouble and even being dangerous. But what they did at the Pasar Seni LRT station in Kuala Lumpur, that was on a whole other level. CNA News had a whole report on it.
They planted a fake bomb on a train and said it was full of enslaved Pokemon. People were terrified. There was stampede injuries. It was chaos.
It was a really scary situation. And what's even crazier is that the misinformation about the Pokemon being on the train spread so fast.
Right. The authorities were quick to say that there weren't even any Pokemon on the train, but by then it was too late.
Yeah, the damage was done. But the Malaysian authorities responded quickly. The Special Action Unit, which is their elite counterterrorism force, they got there and took care of the fake bomb and arrested a bunch of Team Plasma members.
That's good to hear. But I bet everyone is on edge after that Prasarana Berhad, the company that runs the trains. They probably had to increase security everywhere, right?
Oh, absolutely. They've got bag inspections, more security personnel. They're not taking any chances.
I don't blame them. This wasn't just some prank. This was a serious attempt to hurt people physically and emotionally.
Right.
And it makes you wonder what Team Plasma is planning next. Are they going to get even more violent?
That's the big question. And now the Royal Malaysia Police, the RMP, they're looking into a possible connection between Professor Oak's arrest and this whole Team Plasma attack. It's getting really complicated.
Wow, so this might not be a coincidence.
Right. The Associated Press is reporting that the RMP found some encrypted messages between Team Plasma members. And in those messages, they talk about Oak's arrest and say they need to escalate their activities.
Are they trying to use Professor Oak to get more attention? Are they trying to turn him into some kind of hero for their cause?
That's what the RMP is trying to find out. They're even looking into international connections within Team Plasma to see if this attack was planned from outside of Malaysia.
Well, the IPRA has been pretty clear that they don't think Professor Oak's research has anything to do with Team Plasma's actions. In fact, BBC News said they called linking the two a gross misrepresentation.
They're saying that Oak's work has always been about helping Pokemon, and to say anything else is just wrong and could even be dangerous. They think this is just people trying to make a good scientist look bad and take attention away from the real problem, which is Team Plasma's extremism.
It's like everyone is trying to spin this their own way. It's hard to know what to believe. But one thing's for sure, this whole thing has really divided the Pokemon community.
Absolutely.
Right.
And it's shown us that we really need to be clearer about the rules for Pokemon research and care. We need to find a way to make sure that research is done ethically and that Pokemon are treated well no matter where they are in the world.
This isn't just a Malaysian problem.
Yeah.
It's a global issue with global consequences.
Mm-hmm.
And it's all happening while Professor Oak is still waiting for his trial. Speaking of which, let's move over to the courtroom and see what's been going on there.
Yeah, the stakes are high for everyone involved, not just for Professor Oak and his friends, but for the whole Pokemon world.
Okay, so let's get into it.
Sounds good. The trial itself is actually pretty interesting. It's not just, lawyers and a judge. It's like a mini version of all the big arguments and disagreements we've been talking about.
Yeah, you're right. It's like the whole courtroom has become this battleground for people who have completely different ideas about Pokemon research activism.
Yep.
It's wild.
Exactly. And what happens in this trial could have a huge impact on how we deal with these issues in the future.
Okay, so let's go over the charges against Professor Oak and the others. Starting with Oak. What exactly are they saying he did wrong?
The main charge is that he was practicing medicine without a license, which is a big no-no in Malaysia.
And if I remember correctly from that interview with Dedo Amirul Hamza on NBC News, the punishment could be pretty serious.
Oh, yeah. Definitely fines, imprisonment. He could even be deported. But Oak's lawyers are saying that he was just trying to help. He was being compassionate and trying to help Pokemon that were hurting.
That makes sense. I mean, he's always been known for caring about Pokemon,
Right.
but that doesn't change the fact that he was breaking the law in Malaysia.
Right, and that's the problem. The prosecution is saying that it doesn't matter what Oak's intentions were. What he did was illegal and could have even been dangerous. They're saying that if we let people give medical care to Pokemon without a license, even if they mean well, it could lead to all sorts of problems.
So it's like compassion versus the law.
Mm-hmm.
That's tough. I wonder how the judge is going to decide.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. And then there's Ash and his friends. They're in trouble because of that protest outside the JPVM office. Remember the one that turned into a riot?
Right, and I think NBC News mentioned that some people actually got hurt.
Yeah, and that's why the charges against them are more serious than just, unlawful assembly. They could be facing fines, imprisonment, even deportation.
Wow. So what are they saying to defend themselves?
It sounds like they're saying that they were just trying to protest peacefully. They were standing up for Professor Oak because they think he was arrested unfairly.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
They're loyal to Oak.
Big gate.
But even peaceful protests have to follow the rules, right?
Exactly. If a protest ends up with people getting hurt, or if it disrupts things too much, then the people involved can get in trouble.
It's a tough lesson to learn, but an important one. You can't break the law, even if you have good intentions.
I agree. And this whole trial is really showing us how tricky it is to balance freedom of speech with keeping people safe.
Okay, so we've got the trial happening, and then we've got that whole Team Plasma thing going on. It feels like there's something bigger going on here that we're missing.
I think you might be right. These things might seem separate, but they're connected in a way. They're both showing us that there's a lot of tension in the Pokemon world.
Like what kind of tension?
Well, there's this tension between individual freedom and responsibility. Like Professor Oak, he was following his conscience, but his actions ended up having consequences for other people. And then there's Team Plasma. They say they're trying to help Pokemon, but they're actually putting Pokemon and people in danger.
So it's about figuring out how to make sure that people's actions don't hurt others.
Yeah, exactly. And that means we need to talk to each other, work together, and try to understand where everyone is coming from.
Which brings us back to ethics in Pokemon research.
Yeah.
This case has really made people think about those issues.
For sure. The BBC News article we talked about earlier said that we need clearer rules about how to take care of Pokemon and do research with them. We need those rules to stop groups like Team Plasma from getting more powerful.
So maybe this whole mess with Professor Oak could actually lead to some positive changes. Maybe it'll force everyone to rethink how we do Pokemon research around the world.
It could. It's definitely made everyone aware of the fact that there are problems with the way we treat Pokemon and the rules about research. We need better guidelines, better understanding, and more cooperation between countries.
We need to make sure that Pokemon are safe and healthy no matter where they are.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about the people who got hurt in that Team Plasma attack. What happened to them shows just how dangerous extremism and misinformation can be.
It's scary to think that something that started with a lie could end up hurting people.
It really emphasizes how important it is to think critically about the information we see and hear. We have to be careful not to let fear and anger control us.
We need to be smart about the information we consume and be aware of people who are trying to manipulate us.
Education is key. We need to help people learn how to navigate the world of information and make good decisions.
Okay, so I've got all of this going on, the trials, the ethical debates, and the threat of Team Plasma. It's a lot to think about.
It is, but I think the most important thing is to remember that this isn't just a story about Professor Oak and Team Plasma. This is a story about all of us.
What do you mean?
I mean that we all have a responsibility to protect Pokemon and make sure they're treated well. We have to work together to create a world where Pokemon and humans can live together peacefully.
It's like a call to action.
Yeah.
We need to stay informed, get involved, and fight for what's right.
Exactly. And we can't lose hope. Even when things are tough, we have to believe that we can learn from our mistakes, come together, and make things better for everyone.
You're right. This whole situation is challenging, but it's also pushing us to think about things in new ways and hopefully make some positive changes.
And that's what's so fascinating about this whole thing. It's not just about the news, it's about who we are as a society and where we're headed.
I never thought a deep dive about Professor Oak getting arrested would get this deep.
It's amazing how one event can unravel so many layers of complexity. It's a reminder that even in the world of Pokemon, where there are all these amazing creatures and incredible adventures, things can get really complicated.
Yeah, real life always finds a way to creep in.
Yeah.
But that's what we do here on Deep Dive. We dig into the messy, complicated stuff and try to make sense of it.
Exactly. And we want you, our listeners, to join us on this journey of exploration and discovery.
It's crazy how this all started with Professor Oak just wanting to help some hurt Pokemon, and now it's this huge international incident.
Yes.
And Team Plasma, they're definitely making things worse.
It's really interesting how this whole case has become such a big deal. It's brought up so many important issues. We're seeing how the rules about research ethics clash with different cultures, legal systems, and even how people think about Pokemon.
And this isn't just happening in Malaysia. The whole world is watching this unfold. It's all over the news, social media. Everyone's got something to say about it.
Yeah, it really shows how connected we all are. What's happening over there is affecting people everywhere.
Let's pretend for a second that the court decides Professor Oak is guilty. What would that mean for researchers all over the world?
I think it would show that everyone, even famous researchers like Oak, have to respect the laws of the countries they're in. It would also show that researchers need to be more careful and work together more when they're doing research in other countries.
But wouldn't that make researchers nervous to work in countries with strict rules, even if they're just trying to do good?
That's a good point. It's a tough balance. We need to figure out how to make sure the law is followed, but also encourage people to work together. This whole situation might actually lead to more conversations between research organizations and governments all over the world.
Maybe something good can come out of all this. Maybe this will force everyone to rethink how we do Pokemon research and take care of Pokemon all around the world.
I think you're right. It's a wake-up call. It's showing us that we still have a lot to learn and a lot to do better. We need clearer rules, better understanding, and more cooperation between countries.
We got to make sure that Pokemon are taken care of no matter where they are in the world.
Absolutely. And we can't forget about the people who were hurt in that Team Plasma attack. What happened to them is a reminder that extremism and misinformation can have real consequences in the real world.
Yeah. It's scary to think that a lie could end up hurting real people.
It shows how important it is to think critically about the information we come across. We can't let fear and anger control us.
We have to be careful about what we believe and watch out for people who are trying to manipulate us.
Education is so important. We need to teach people how to figure out what's true and make good decisions in this world where there's so much information coming at us all the time.
So where do we go from here? What's the takeaway for our listeners?
I think the most important thing to remember is that this isn't just about Professor Oak or Team Plasma. This is about all of us. It's about our responsibility to protect Pokemon and create a world where they can thrive alongside humans.
So it's a call to action. We need to stay informed, get involved, and fight for what's right.
Exactly. And we can't give up hope. Even when things are tough, we have to believe that we can learn from our mistakes, come together, and build a better future for everyone.
Well said. This whole deep dive has been fascinating and honestly a little scary at times.
It has, but like always, the conversation doesn't stop here.
Don't forget to like and subscribe to AI Shetness on YouTube for more deep dives into all sorts of interesting topics. We'll keep bringing you the latest and greatest.
Until next time, keep exploring, keep asking questions, and keep learning.
And remember, the world is full of amazing things just waiting to be discovered.